Before getting started, I just want to say that you can now use the basic MMC commands like play and stop. And if you press play while it's playing, it will retrigger. Rewind will kill all MIDI, which is like a panic button. Fast forward starts and stops the sun. And finally, record is time grab, which we'll get to later. This tutorial is really about the teleportation system, which is all these numbers that you've probably seen in the bottom of time and step, and also in the note module and in the mod modules here on the side, in all the sequencing modules. How it's set up is remembered individually by each preset and is quite simple to set up by using MIDI learn. I'll just select the note field and press a note, and you'll see there A-1 has been selected, my lowest note. I'll just change the range of both the playing modules to D0 so they won't follow me in that part of the keyboard. And store changes to all the sequencing modules. And we're back. So in all simplicity, you turn the field on and select the target, and you then store the preset. And now when I press that note, I go to the target, which is our preset off. If I then do exactly the same here in this preset, but put in number 2 as target, store that, I can then switch between those two presets with that one note. Our off preset is a bit boring since it also disables our faders, so I'll use the graph modulating preset as a base. I'll set the target to 2 and store that as number 1, call it dir for direct. And then I'll turn the graph reading off and switch the mode to offset, and then punch in the exact values I would like, and then basically using these as normal direct MIDI controllers when I'm in that mode. This way I can use that node to switch between directly controlling parameters with my two faders or modulating the graph as we are used to. Now that's one example. You also see these control and velocity fields, and if I press a note, you can see that the velocity I played is shown along with the note I played, and I can then change the range. And if I turn a knob up here, you can see that the value is shown, and I can then choose if it should change to the target, whether it's above or below that threshold. Same goes for velocity, of course. We'll explore that in a bit. I'll just leave this mod module with only that one note field active. So far we are playing with 2 time points where we can morph the timing, but changing the amount of points can also be quite interesting. You can see it doesn't matter if I turn on 3 or 4 since it's just playing the 2, so I could even turn them all on. I'll change the duration of the third point a bit, actually call that all on, and just have that ready. So here we are morphing the 2 points, as we did in the last tutorial. But let's add a third point to the tweak. At first you will hear how that extra point affects module 2 in a somewhat crazy way. I'll just turn it off for now, but this is where teleportation will come in handy in a few moments. I'll store that as triple number 4. And you can then hear and see that with just module 1, it's very straightforward. We already have one fader set up to morph between preset 2 and 3 in that time module, but I'll just set up a second fader to change between 2, 3, and 4 without morphing, which of course is just without having the float on. So 2 and 4, store that, and now we can change instantly between those 3 presets. Let's turn on the second module again here, playing in 2/4, and you see there when I go to triple, it gets a little bit crazy, but I've turned MIDI learn on, choose one of the control fields, and you see, as I'm turning that new fader, that it doesn't change to triple before it gets all the way to 127, but I'll just put in above 124 and target 3 and store that. And now as I turn the fader, forgot to activate it. Now as I get above that, it switches to number 3, and then in number 3 I can change division to 1, put all on to move with that rhythm, then store that as all on, and also make it so when it goes below 124 it goes back to preset 2, store that. So now with that single fader, I can both change the time map and have one of the step modules changed to an appropriate preset once I hit a certain value with the fader. The first morphing time fader we set up doesn't teleport the step module, so once I'm in the all-on preset, I can switch to tweak and 2/4 rhythm while keeping step 2 as all-on. And then back to the normal mode with our new fader. Just as we played with multiply before, in this new mode it would be quite fun to play around with the division factor. So I'll just set that up here. Step 2 division, and from 1 to 4 store, and now we can play with that. And all together. For some quite interesting rhythmic variations. And then of course back again, and wherever I want to go. The possible number of rhythmical outcomes from playing with these 3 faders is getting quite high, not to mention the augmentation we're doing with the keyboard, which brings the number closer to infinite. But morphing the time graphs like this of course means you have to make them before playing. But for the brave, as I mentioned in the beginning of the tutorial, there's also a time graph feature. So if I first open up the time module and press the button here, tap twice on the keyboard and press again, we have a new rhythm. Enabling quantize in the main interface will also quantize the incoming points. And remember, you can use the MMC rec button for time grabbing. The first time you press it, the button turns red and awaits your first note. From there you just plug in the rhythm and press it again to indicate the new loop point. With the M toggle on, it uses the number beneath as a grid factor, meaning that by default the loop point will always snap to increments of half the original loop length. But once M is off, you are completely without safety net. Except with a swift move of a time fader, I'm back to normal. Now with both M and R for retrigger on, once I make a time grab, it will also retrigger. It can be a bit tricky, but can be used for small strange breaks, and then afterwards you can very easily return to your more fixed time. Or simply to make a sketch of a time graph by actually playing the rhythm. So I'll just store my modules and save our set so we can continue building.